Now, meanwhile, hundreds of civilians are on the move again as part of an evacuation deal between regime and opposition forces. The process was delayed last week after a convoy was bombed at a transit point in Rashidin. Abubakr al-Shamahi is following the developments in Gaziantep near the Turkey-Syria border. Now, Abubakr, since the convoy was bombed last week, has the second phase of the evacuation deal now been successfully completed?
Yeah, well, it looks like that's the case now. Of course, this is a wide-ranging deal. It's expected to take from start to finish approximately 2 months. And like I say, now this is the second phase of the deal. It had been delayed partly as a result of that bomb that occurred on last Saturday. But what we saw earlier in the day was the buses or the convoys from the two sides of the conflict here, able to enter the areas they wanted to go to. So you have the buses, the convoys from Fu'a and Kafriya. So Fu'a and Kafriya are the two pro-regime villages in Idlib province, surrounded by the opposition. They were able to get to regime territory in Aleppo. And on the other side, you had the buses, the convoys from Zabadani and Madaya. They were able to get to rebel-held territory, around 5 buses from Madaya and Zabadani, around 10 buses from Fu'a and Kafriya. There had been a delay as well, not just because of that bombing on Saturday, but also as a result of a rebel insistence that prisoners be released. So this is also part of the wider deal. There's in total 1,500 prisoners who are supposed to be released as part of this deal. In this phase, it was supposed to be 750. Now, it's not yet clear whether they've been released or not, but as I've said, the convoys have moved and entered the directions they wanted to go to.
Speaking of people being released, and we're just diverting slightly to a different story here, but it seems that this is actually linked to the evacuation deal. We're hearing about a group of kidnapped Qataris that they've been released in Iraq. How is this linked to this particular evacuation deal?
Well, just to preface this, of course, details are incredibly murky. It's not much has been released officially. But what the situation is that a group of Qataris, around 26 Qatari hunters, were in Iraq in 2015 and were kidnapped from Iraq in 2015, this hunting party. And since then, the Qataris have obviously been trying to get them out, and this is where the link comes in. And as you've said, it's quite strange here. We're talking about Qatar and we're talking about Iraq, but at the same time, we're linking it to Syria in some way. Well, you've got to remember that the evacuation deal in Syria was, of course, brokered by Iran and Qatar, not by the Syrian regime. And when we're talking about Iran and Qatar, that brings us to the link to these Qatari hostages. And so it's not entirely certain who kidnapped the Qatari hostages in Iraq, but the link could be one of which, where you have a militia, an Iraqi Shia militia. Of course, many Shia militias from Iraq are fighting in Syria on the ground there, and therein lies a link. So you have Iran, which obviously has an ability to control some of these militias, some of these Shia militias, both in Iraq as well as Syria, entering into negotiations with the Qataris, who of course were desperately trying to seek the release of their hostages, and of course have many links with the Syrian opposition. And so that's the link, or the kind of the slight link that we have there with Syria and with the evacuation deal in Syria. But of course, as I've said, many details haven't emerged and may not emerge due to the kind of the secrecy that surrounded this deal. But a Qatari airplane has been waiting on the tarmac in Baghdad airport for a number of days now, and expected now that those hostages will be or have been released to the Iraqi government and then will be released to the Qatari government over the next couple of hours.
Certainly complex. Abubakr, thank you for attempting to break that down for us. Abubakr al-Shamahi in Gaziantep for us there.